Shall we start, Binduji?
Yeah, we can start.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing classes are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, offered by Binduji. So the format is for 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. We meet at 8:30 p.m. IST. Binduji gives an hour's class, and then after that we have half an hour for Q&A. On Friday, it's an open discussion on Bhagavad Gita. And then Sunday we meet for the Advaita open discussion. The replays are available in Clubhouse, or the two links are provided, and Spotify link Bindoji will provide it shortly. And in these links, you can access all the talks, Bhagavad Gita, Parokshanubhuti, and all the Upanishads that Bindoji has conducted so far. For housekeeping, I'm going to close the chat and hand raising when Bindoji is conducting the class, after which we'll open it for questions and answers and discussions. Over to you, Bindoji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all of you. My invocations. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrabhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtiveda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Stunnandi Divyai Vedai Sangapada Parishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Om. So we saw in the last week Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsas Sangasteshu Vajayate Sangat Samjayate Kama Kama Krodho Vijayate Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smriti Vibhramaha Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinasha Buddhinashat Pranashyati. These two verses gave us a picture of how contacting objects of desire, potentially capable of developing desire, will end up in our destruction. Buddhinashat Pranashyati. So, as a remedy to that, Krishna said that Ragadvesha Vimuktaistu Vishayan Indriyaischharan Atmavasyai Videyatma Prasadam Adigacchati. So we discussed up to this, and in that verse Prasadam Adigacchati, we saw that we do not have to flee from the world. We should not be pulled by it. When senses obey our intellect and the raga dvesha becomes silent on the deployment of the intellect properly, definitely a clarity will dawn as a health itself. It is the health of the individual, not as a physical health, but an intellectual health, whereby he is able to be in the world, yet not tainted by the world's likes and dislikes. Continuing his narration on that, prasade sati kim syad iti uchyate. So when that health, intellectual health is achieved, what happens then? Prasade sarva dukkhanam hani sasya upajayate. Prasanna chedasaha hi anshu buddhir paryavatishtate. Prasade, with the attainment of such placidity of the mind or intellectual clarity, sarva dukkhana, all types of sorrows, adi bhautika, adi daivika, adhyatma, all the three types, that is, you can say that no sorrows. So all sorrows, hani means end. So all the sorrows will end for such a person. Asya upajayate means that is what he is going to achieve when prasada comes. When the health of the intellect comes or the placidity of the mind takes place, he will be able to end all his miseries. Prasanna chetasaha, such a person with tranquil mind, withdrawn itself from all engagement in the attractions of the world. Anshuhi, soon certainly, buddhihi pariyavasishtate. The intellect becomes firmly established or abiding in the self. So everything starts from the understanding that when we have the contact with the objects of the world, they are not by itself is dangerous. But it becomes a dhyana, dhyayato vishayan pumsa. If it becomes a repeated thought in our mind, that is what is called the dhyana. When we have contact with the world, it is neither attracting nor dislike is created in us. There we don't have a afterthought of that object. It becomes a passing vision or a passing experience. We do not dwell upon that contact with the object. That is what is mentioned in the dhyayato vishayan pumsa. And that develops into sangasteshu vajayate. It becomes a permanent contact. Even physically, if you are not in contact, you are mentally in contact. Sangha samjayate kama. That develops the desires in us, the contact, either physically or sensually or intellectually or mentally. Then that desire, when hampered, we develop anger because expectations are born out of desires. That expectations are broken and we become angry with such a situation. And when anger comes, we lose our self-control. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means delusion. In anger, we do not know what we are doing. And when we are in anger, have we ever thought that what is happening to us? We do not have any control either on our mental, intellectual or physical sense organs. And that is a time Smriti Vibhrama takes place. That is means total confusion takes place. We are not knowing why we are becoming angry, invariably. And the anger develops into a lack of discrimination. What is to be done, what is not to be done. We are not in a position to deploy our intellect. And that when it happens, buddhinasha, that is the time when our intellect totally loses its capability to logically think and analyze and take a stand. No. We are driven by the anger. And anger is a self-annihilating reaction on our side. To the extent we curse ourselves or we do actions in such a way that we are hurt, either physically, mentally, or intellectually. Because we want to blame it on somebody, never knowing that it is our desire which is, when broken, this anger has propped up. So the only way we can get out of that is raga dvesha vimuktai. We have to free ourselves from the raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes, which can arise out of the sangha, means constant dwelling on the objects. That is why in the last verse he said, we can be in the world, but we should not be attracted by the world. Raga dvesha vimuktai. When we do that, prasadam adhigamyate, we will get a placidity of the mind, or the, peace of mind, an intellectual composure. And when that is there, we will know that there is nothing which is affecting us as objects of the world. We can be in the thick and thin of that. Since we are not getting affected by that, we don't see it as thick and thin, we see them as events. And such a time is where this prasanna chetasa, that is a very important word to remember. A person with a tranquil mind, withdrawn from all its contact with the world, as a doership or enjoyership. He is withdrawn, he has no doership or enjoyership in it. When he doesn't have the doership or enjoyership, his mind is tranquil. And in such a mind, or the inner organ, intellect, padhyavatishtade, that is only possible when it firmly abides in the self. So when there is serenity, there flows eradication of all sorrows. Because of the wisdom of the one who has serene mind, soon becomes firmly established in the self. So prasade sarva dukkhanam adhyatmika adinam hani vinashaha asya yatehe upajayate. When the prasada or the serenity arises, there occurs a cessation, the destruction of all pains. Whether it is arising from within, adhyatmika, from beings, adibhautika, or from external causes, adidaivika. Or yate, this asya yate means for this renunciate. One who has renounced the attraction toward the world. Incha, moreover, prasanna chetasaha, swastha andakaranasya hi, yasmad ashu shigram buddhi paryavastishtade, akasham iva परिसंबंधाद अवतिष्ठते आत्मस्वरूपेण एव निश्चली भवति इत्यर्थः. Kincha, moreover, prasanna chetasa, for the one whose mind is serene, whose inner organ is healthy and at ease, swastha andakaranasyahi. His intellect quickly, swiftly, ashu means quickly or swiftly, shigram, buddhi paryavastishtade, comes to rest. Akasham iva, like space itself, standing everywhere all around, that is, it becomes motionless in its very own nature as a self. So the self is compared to the akasha or the space. It is sarvabhyapi, it is everywhere, sarvagataha, all around. Yet, the events taking place within itself do not impact the space. Same way, one who is abiding in the self, knowing his very own nature is the self, becomes motionless, means becomes unperturbed, unshaken, unaffected. Because evam prasanna chetasaha avastita buddhehe kritakrityata yataha tasmad ragadvesha vimuktahi indriyaihi shastra abhiruddeshu avarjaniyeshu yukta samacharet iti vakyartaha. Thus, for the one whose mind is serene and whose intellect is firmly established, there is nothing to be completed because there is no doership. Kritakritya yataha. The yati is in a state of kritakrityata. Shankaracharya uses the word kritakrityata as the inner nature of a Brahmajnani, because he has nothing to be done. Even if he is seen as engaged in the world, his inner attitude is that he is doing nothing, he is enjoying nothing. That is the state of kritakrityata. A sense of having done what had to be done. It is not that there is something to be done and he feels that he has completed it. He has seen that there is nothing to be done and therefore there has to be no activity. The meaning of the teaching is this: one should engage with senses free from attachment and aversion, raga dvesha vimuktai, in objects that are not to be avoided and that are not supposed to be opposed to the Shastra. Why regulated engagement culminates in effortless abidance? This is the answer. This verse is the answer for it. Engagement, regulated, means with no raga dvesha, no likes and dislike, culminates in the effortless abidance. Then there is no requirement or effort for an abidance. It becomes natural, swabhava. That is why prasada ends all suffering. Prasada is not a pleasure of the mind or the antakarana. It's the inner health or swastham, Shankaracharya's word. It's the swastham. Swastham means a perfect health of the from within. Physically, he may have any other defects, but he doesn't identify with the physicality of his own nature. But internally, he feels abiding in the nature of his own self. He is the healthiest. Because disturbances lose their purchasing power or the investment in the world outside. Pains like internal, external or circumstantial, they are removed from the root because they are themselves non-existential. So Adhyatma, Adi Bhautika, Adi Devika, all the three are only when you are feeling that there is a creation, there is Daiva, and this self is other than the nature of myself. Because suffering requires interaction or friction between the world of objects outside. But for a person of prasada, who has now firmly fixed in his own nature of self, that prasada removes any kind of friction. When he used the simile for Akasha, Akasha does not move to occupy things. Please understand that. It is not that when an object comes up in Akasha, Akasha is moving out to give the existentiality for that object. Because it's all pervasive. It's already present even in the object which is appearing in the space. Same way, the intellect does not strain for the knowledge of the self. Because the self is all-pervading, including the intellect. So there is no strain between the intellect and the self. Therefore, the intellect settles itself into what it is already is. There cannot be a better example like the space and the objects. This is not a concentration, but a cessation of displacement. It is not that when we know the self, the world is getting replaced or displaced. This knowledge of the self or abidance in the self gives rise to that tranquility on the intellect and the mind, where the mind or the intellect realizes the nature of the self within and without. It's because it is all pervading. Atmaswarupenaiva nischali bhavati. Very crucial Advaitic statement. Stillness is not imposed on the Atma. It is the identity itself. And therefore the intellect becomes still as the self itself. There is no separation, no effort, nothing is there in as an activity. That is why the kritakrityata comes. And that kritakrityata is a mark of completion of the pursuit of self-knowledge. Nothing further remains to be done. Kritakrityata means it is not a state of lethargy. It's a teleological completion. The purpose of discipline has been fulfilled. Whatever discipline we undertook before the knowing of the self and abiding in it, it reaches the culmination, having met with the pursuit of the discipline as the kritakrityata, or nothing further remains to be done. Therefore, the final instruction is that without renunciation of life, engage with senses in the world of objects, but without the raga and dvesha. And act within the instructions of the Shastra. Do not invent avoidance where one is not required to do anything of that type. This pratyahara, etc., what we are thinking avoidance. There is no need of those things. That is what is called the liberation lived or Jivan Mukti. It is not an escape from the contact with the world. So when serenity dawns, nothing remains to be resisted or attained. Abiding as the self, one lives complete, clear and free in the midst of life. That is why people like Janaka also could successfully be a king, yet as a jnani, he could continue his life. Seyam prasannata suyate. Krishna is now eulogizing that prasannata. The next verse, 66. Nasti buddhira saktasya, nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhayavayata, sandhi ashandasya kutasukam. Nasti, there cannot be. Buddhihi, this determinate intellect. For whom? Ayuktasya, for one who is not connected, or one who is not connected with the self. Nacha ayuktasya bhavana, nor does he have a bhavana, means a mind which is in happiness, fixed mind. Nacha abhavayata, the one who is not fixed in the self. Shantihi, for him there is no peace. Ashandasya kutasukam, one who is not having peace, or one who is unpeaceful. Kutasukam, where can he be happy? So Krishna says that there is no knowledge of the self to the unsteady, and to the unsteady, no meditation is possible. And to the unmeditative, there can be no peace. And to the man who has no peace, how can there be happiness? So he is giving a hierarchy. This passage is concluding the sequence of the decisive hierarchy. Collectedness, knowledge, peace and happiness. Collectedness means one who is intellectually now established in it. Buddhi, one who is collected. Nasti, na vidyate na bhavati ityartaha. That is, there does not exist or do not arise. What? Buddhihi atma swarupa vishaya ayuktasya asamahitasya andakaranasya. An intellect whose object is the nature of self, or one who is unintegrated, whose inner organs are not collected, for him, na vidyate nasti buddhi. For him there is no intellect which is possible of doing. Nacha asti ayuktasya bhavana atmajnana abhinivesha. The word bhavana has been explained as atmajnana abhinivesha. That is firm absorption in self-knowledge. So what does it? Nacha asti ayuktasya bhavana. There is no steady contemplation for one who is unintegrated. Therefore, no firm absorption in the self-knowledge. Tata, likewise, nacha asti abhavayata. There is no peace, no tranquility. Atmajnana abhinivesham akurvata. For one who does not cultivate, who does not engage in that firm absorption of the self-knowledge. Ashandasya kutasukam. Please remember that if our mind is never at peace, we can never have happiness. The happiness is only when the mind is at peace. This is exactly what I explained as the three stages when I explained that Sangat Samjayate Kama. That is Priya, Modam, Pramoda. When we think about something, when we see it, we become Priya. When we possess it, hold it, there is Moda. When it becomes part and parcel of us, Pramoda. So this is the state which we think, and all the three are different levels of the mind in engagement with that object. But when a person is devoid of raga dvesha, he has no priya, moda, pramoda. His mind is always at peace, and therefore he is always happy. That is the smile which you see on such a person's face always. Nothing disturbs him, nothing affects him. Indriyanam hi vishaya seva trishnataha nivrittita nivrittihi ya tat sukham na vishaya trishna sukham eva hi sa na trishnayam satyam sukhasya gandamatram api upapadyate ityartha. Happiness is that withdrawal of senses from the craving born of services to sense objects. Seva trishna, services, to craving for that. Happiness is not a craving for sense objects. For craving itself is nothing but a pain. When craving persists, not even the faintest trace of happiness is possible. Gandha matram api upapadyeta na trishnayam satyam. When there is a faintest trace of trishna or carving is there, we cannot attain happiness. This passage sees the argument with logical necessity. Why knowledge cannot arise without collectedness? Yukta, that is the word used, samachara. Without yukti, integration or composure, the intellect cannot take Atman as its object. The intellect merging with Atman will not be possible unless there is this collectedness. This is not a moral failing, it's a functional impossibility. A scattered instrument cannot reflect the subtle truth. Bhavana abidance is not a mere thought. It's not a casual thinking. Normally, bhavana is imagination. But here it is not used as imagination. It is used as a sustained absorption or a lived abidance, jnana nishta. So when there is no integration, we cannot have abidance. And when we do not have abidance, we can never be at peace. Peace is not an optional thing here. It is a middle requirement in the process. The integration leading to knowledge, knowledge leading to abidance, and only when we are abiding in that self, there is peace, and that peace is now the happiness. And if any breakage in that chain of integration, knowledge, abidance, peace and happiness, we cannot be at peace or at happiness, have happiness. So what is this happiness really? So happiness is defined negatively and precisely in the Bhashya as cessation of craving, not fulfillment of craving. When fulfillment of craving takes place, we have temporary happiness, which is a mirrored happiness, which we think that we are happy when we have the objects of craving. But soon we get satisfied enough or reduced value for it, and then the craving begins again for another one. That is the trishna. It's an agitation. And therefore there is a dependence for this to be in contact with the objects. And since it is a effort, there is a pain by definition. Pleasure is not happiness, what we are talking about. Whereas permanent relief from craving is what is happiness. Pleasures are momentary in nature. So, the Bhashyakara or Shankaracharya ends this without any compromise. Where craving exists, happiness cannot be even as a smell, not possible. Gandhamatrena. That's what his statement is. It is not a pessimism. It is a diagnostic clarity. No composure, no knowledge. No knowledge, no peace. No peace, no happiness. So happiness is not found in the object. It appears only when the craving falls dead. Na alpe sugamasti. Bhumaiva sukam. If you remember Chandogya Upanishad 7th chapter, Narada was being told by Sanaka, Na alpe sugamasti, bhumaiva sukam. In the limited, there is no happiness. Bhuma or Brahman or the self, that is indeed the happiness. Ayuktasya kasmad buddhir nasti ityuchyate. Ayuktasya means the man who has no composure. Why doesn't he have the intellect? Why? It is being explained. Indriyanam hi charatam Yan mano anuvidhiyate tasya harati prajnam vayurnava iva ambasi. Vayurnava iva ambasi. Indriyanam, of the senses. Ticharadam, one which is roaming only in the Indriyana. Yet, which manaha anuvidhiyate, with them, in which the mind is constantly engaged. Anuvidhiyate. Asya harati prajnam, that for that person's buddhi or the intellect is, harati means stolen by the, prajnam harati means intellect is stolen by the, in roaming around of this, indriyas, constant engagement with the sense objects. He is using the word charati here, charatam. Charatam means like a cattle grazing for the grass. Have you noticed it? It can never lift his head and look for that even a predator coming when it is so busy in eating. His neck down, constantly looking for grass after grass, engaged in it. That is the word indriyana vicharadam. That is how our sense organs are perpetually roaming around for sense objects one after the other. Tasya harati prajnam. If we are in that state, our intellect is stolen by the engagement with the sense objects. How? Vayur navam iva ambasi. Like a boat in water without that oars or the wind mast. When a boat is there, you don't have the oars to pedal it, or you don't have a mast for controlling the wind. You are left for the waves to rock you wherever it wants to go. So that example is that the waves are the sense objects. The intellect is the boat. And it takes one wave, tosses it and gives it to another wave. That second wave tosses it and gives to the third wave. Like that it keeps on tossing up and down, never able to reach the shore. So when the mind follows the sense experiences in their sense objects, his understanding is carried away by them as the wind carries away a ship on the waters. Indriyanam hi yasmat taratanam swaswa vishayeshu pravartamananam yat manaha anuvidhiyate anupravartate tat indriya vishaya kalpanena pravrittam manaha asya yatehe harati prajnam atma anatma vivega jnana nashayati. Atma anatma vivegajam anashayati. For when the senses are moving about, engaged in their respective objects, and the mind follows along with them, running after them, that mind, engaged in discriminating among sense objects, that is the nature of the mind otherwise, that is robbed, this renunciate of his wisdom born out of discrimination between the self and the non-self. It destroys it. Atma anatma vivekajam nashayati. when the engagement of the intellect is perpetually in the sense objects, where can there be a discrimination for that intellect to know between what is Atma and Anatma or Nitya and Anitya? It's not possible. Katham? How? Vayu navam iva ambasi. Udake jagamisyatam margat uddritya unmarge yada vayu navam pravartayati evam atma vishayam prajnam kritva mana vishayam karoti. Just as the wind in water sweeps a boat away from the intended path and drives it along with the wrong course, even though it seeks to reach its destination, so too the mind, having seized the wisdom oriented toward the self, turns towards the objects. This is what happens when a person who has acquired the knowledge but is not able to control his raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. He gets carried away. His intellect gets carried away like the boat in an ocean without any control. So it is culmination almost of the same thought process which Krishna has brought in. Even a subtle consent to the sense movement is dangerous. Mano anuvidyate. That is not the mere operation of the senses, but the mind following them. Anuvidyate. Senses may register data, but bondage begins when the mind joins that motion. There is a difference between perception and participation. As a jnani, or a person who has determined an intellect is collected, he may perceive the sense objects, but he doesn't participate in engagement with that. But if he gets engaged, what happens? Vivekaja pratnya is lost. Atma anatma vivekaja pratnya. Discriminative mind or intellect to differentiate between the self and the non-self, or nitya and anitya. That is lost. This knowledge is delicate, but at the same time it is not fragile. But it is fragile in the access. Because we are using an instrument called mind, which is highly fragile in nature. If the mind, even for an iota of a second, turns outward, it will eclipse the jnana, atma, anatma, viveka. We will not be able to do that. So that example of the boat and the wind is exact and unforgiving. The boat intends to reach a destination. The sailor does nothing wrong, yet a strong wind deviates the course. Likewise, the seeker may be sincere. The knowledge is present from the teacher and the Shastra. He has heard everything. But an unguarded attention to the sense objects redirects his cognition, and he without his knowledge, he lands in a different destination. It's a deviation, but not a destruction. But that deviation is enough ultimately to get a destruction. So how does the wisdom become object-oriented? How can we do that? Atma Vishayam Prajnam Hritva Mano Vishaya Vishayam Karoti. The mind does not annihilate the knowledge. The knowledge is there, but the mind gets reassigned in its orientation. The focus which should be, or the direction should be the self, but it is getting turned outward to the sense objects. This is the functional laws of the intellect. And what is the practical implication of that? Do not let the mind trail the senses. Keep the orientation, but not isolation. The solution is not to be blind towards sense organs, blind in our perception, because we need to be knowing through the perception everything. Every experience is educating us the presence of the self in all. So when it is not blinding us, but it is unfollowing toward the self, but toward the sense organs. It follows toward the sense organs. So therefore, we have to be alert. Uttishtada, Jagrada, Prapyavaran Nibodhata. Kathopanishad, we studied in detail this. So when the mind follows the senses, wisdom is lost. And the loss of discriminative self-knowledge takes place. This occurs through the reorientation and not annihilation. Like a wind diverting the boat, the sense engagement in the objects derails our cognition. Even if we are sincere, the sincerity alone does not prevent this deviation. Only vigilance over the mind's direction is essential. So it is not the senses that steal the wisdom, but the mind that consents to follow them. Guard the direction of attention. For even a single drift is enough for the turn of the sense intellect, like the boat turning away from the shore. Therefore, tasmad asya mahabaho nihritani sarvashaha indriyani indriyartebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtita. So he is giving the last prajna pratishtita, the one who is Tita Prajna. What happens? Yasya, whose Nihridani Sarvashaha. All the time, Sarvashaha, all around, all the time. Nigrihitani means in control. Indriyani, sense organs, the senses. Indriyarthebhyaha, from the sense objects. So the one who is all the time, all around, who is in control, or Nigrihidani is who has curbed down his sense organs from the sense objects. Tasya prajna pratishtita. Therefore, O Arjuna, his knowledge is steady, whose senses are completely restrained from the sense objects. This is the closing argument on the sense restrainment from the firm diagnostic conclusion. Indriyanam pravrtau doshaha upapadidaha yasmat tasmat tasya yatehe he mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashaha sarvaprakaraihi manasa adivedaihi indriyani indriyabhyartebhyaha shabda adibhyaha tasya prajna pratishtita. Since that defect inherent in the outward movement of the senses has thus been explained, therefore, O Arjuna, that renunciate whose senses by the very means in every way, including mental restraint and the like, have been fully restrained from the objects such as sound, etc. His wisdom is firmly established. So the logical conclusion, it's not a new instruction. He is repeating almost like Yasmad means the danger of sense movement is already been demonstrated. The derailment of wisdom has been explained step by step in all the previous verses with the boat simile. So nigrihitani, restraint is what is being precisely recommended. Nigraha is not a momentary checking or restrainment, but it is a stable governance of the sense organs from the sense objects. Sarvashaha sarvaprakarebhyaha manasa adibedita. Means complete at every mode, including the mental restraint. That is primarily cognitive in nature. It is not a mere physical activity. So the mental restraint is the explicitity. One may restrain the body by doing the tapas, etc. Yet leave the mind roaming. Even if he is in a meditative mode, his mind will be engaged in the sense objects. Such restrainments are ineffective. And a true restraint begins where intention and attention arise same time towards the self. This is what the prajna pratishtita. This is the diagnostic mark of a stita prajna. If you restrain, your wisdom will arise. From where wisdom is firm, restrainment is easy and already present. Therefore, direction from knowledge to mastery and not the reverse. It is not mastery to knowledge. It is with knowledge the mastery should come. So the 54 to 68 verses completes the complete process how we have to be a sthita prajna and yet be in the world of objects. So the inquiry into sthita prajna, inner freedom, vigilance what we have to apply so that the senses do not drift, and final stabilization in the fixated mind. So where senses are mastered in every way, especially in the mind itself, their wisdom does stand without any flicker. I'll stop it here. We'll continue the verse next tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much, Binduti. I've opened the chat and hand raising for any follow-up discussions.
We'll meet tomorrow then. Continue.
Okay,
There are another 4 more verses which we should be able to complete tomorrow. And Wednesday we can go to chapter number 3.
I think Srinivas is coming up. Sure, yeah.
Namaste, Srinivas.
So, Namaste, Vindoji. So I just recollected there is one thought experiment where, like for example, if such a person who is described is walking and a snake comes in his path, so how would he react is a question. So how to, any comments from your side, Vindoji?
He will not be disturbed or fearful about the snake. He may stand still and the snake will go on its own path.
Yeah. I think that in the context that, like for example, once we talked about krityata, and also engagement, he will engage in such a the general engagement. Does it make any difference, like he does a particular action or refrains, or does it in some different way, like we say kartum akartum anyada kartum, right? So the engagement that we talk about, does it have any rules of such engagement, or any engagement is same kind of thing?
For him, there is no engagement from his point of view. Only from our point of view, we may feel that he is engaging. So we will assume that he has got kartum, akartum, anyada kartum, all these options are there for him. From his point of view, there is no doership nor enjoyership. So he is neither doing nor enjoying.
So when we said that such a person is engaging, like he engages, like it's like a positive, like for example, I think it's going to come up, right? Like nakaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akar. So that engagement is not something which comes with a vidhi or something like that, right?
No.
Yeah.
It is out of knowledge.
Yeah. So in that way, that's what I think I was thinking of this example. So no matter what happens, it is, so there are wide variety of options and anything can happen, right? We really cannot expect, do you think? Or
no, we can't explain. Shankaracharya says that in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, Pashwadibhischa Visheshat. He will be like a Pashu, means an animal. He may also behave like an animal in the sense that it will come if grass is shown. If it is a stick is shown, he will run away. When these two are the natural way, it's a natural behavior. So that is response of the body. But from his internal point of view, he has neither the desire for the grass nor he afraid of the stick from the internal point of view. Because he doesn't see them as what you call, either attraction or a repulsion. That is why raga dvesha vimuktai, when that word is used.
Yeah. I got this question because when we use that word engagement today in the lecture at that kritakritya, with that attitude, when we say he engages with the world, that word engagement includes all three options, right? Like doing, non-doing, and doing it some other way. Like it's not one.
It
way,
is from
right?
from our point of view, yes. But from his point of view, there is no activity at all. So he is not even engaging.
Yeah. So then so when we say engage also, it is from our point of view only. So
yes.
So the statement that he will engage with the kritakritya attitude is from our point of view.
From our point of view.
Okay. Thank you, Binduji. That's what I understood.
Thank you, Srini. Namaste, Anna.
Namaste, Binduji. It was wonderful lesson this today. I wanted to know two questions are there. I'm sure you must have explained it earlier. Like you said that integration leads to knowledge leads to abidance leads to um, uh, peacefulness and peacefulness lead to happiness, or maybe abundance lead to, yeah. So in this process, there is cessation of cravings, and that leads to happiness.
Mm.
Right? So
Right.
one question is how to get avoidance, if you could explain again. And the second question is, like you said, that vigilance is my understanding is vigilance is constantly required, not to get involved in sense object or think about sense objects, because that create desires, and it happen. My understanding, it is so automatic response that there is this knowledge, which is in a new baby stage, probably this knowledge of self knowledge or self realization, it will then again become nullified. So until a person is established in the self realization knowledge, till that time, my understanding is that you said that there has to be proper vigilance taken. But there was another, a few days ago, you said that one enlightened person, he, because of some compassion towards somebody, he basically he got involved in worldly stuff, and but in the end, when he recited Narayan, like, because his son's name was Narayan, but he could get back to the original Narayan realization, recalling of his,
Mm.
so then he got liberated. So now the thing is, Anu is acquired name, and if somebody, in deep sleep, somebody says Anu, I never forget I'm Anu, but that is acquired. Originally I am self. So if I am totally established in self, so is vigilance required still, or is it like, now I know I'm not person, and it is a permanent knowledge because it's a required knowledge? So these two things: first the abidance, and secondly, yeah, this.
See, abundance is the mandatory for you to have that, the peace. The peace comes from when you remove the ragadvesha or the indriyarthebhya. It's contact between the senses and the sense organs. When it is removed, you will be abiding with the self knowledge of yourself, because the mind has a problem. It needs something to hold on to. Always it needs something to hold on. So it uses the sense organs and the sense objects in the normal sense. But when the knowledge which we have acquired, we know that we are the self. The same mind should now remain in abidance with the self. Then only it can have the peace within, and such a peace only will give you the ultimate happiness, which is the nature of the self itself. So that abidance, peace and happiness go instantaneously happen. It is not, even though it is mentioned stage by stage, that it all happens instantaneously. But at the same time, mind is a instrument which, the very reason why we are thinking we are Anu or Bindo in the first place, because even though we were knowing we were self, the knowledge was there. When did we forget that and became the knowledge? Is because when we got started tempted by the senses and the sense organs. And then we became a bundle of memories. So this vigilance is what is required all through. And even for a jnani, When this mind will play a dirty game or momentary thing, has been shown in the scriptures many a time that the fickleness of the nature of the mind, which has made people with the great knowledge to slip and get attracted toward the objects. Not only in this thing, Ajamila, even Jadabharata, there are cases of like that in the Mahabharata, Bhagavata, all these places. If you are familiar with that, you will know. So we need to be abiding in the self and Nishta. That is the most important. That abidance should be in such a way that Yat karashyasi yadasnasi tatkurusha madarpanam is a devotional way, which Krishna talks in the Bhagavad Gita itself. Whatever we do should be always with the remembrance of the self. That will make us abide with ourselves, our true nature. Whether you want to remember that self as Krishna or Shiva or your Atman or Brahman, it's immaterial. That nature of the Atma, once it is known, you don't depend upon the names and forms. And when we abide in that, we need to be always alert, because our mind is there as long as this body is functional. It's an instrument we are thinking. It is just like we have to be alert sitting behind the driver's wheel when we are holding the steering. We have the measurement of the car as our dimension, even though it is a car dimension. The alertness, as long as the car is in motion and the engine is running, we have to be alert, because when it can go out of hand control, we don't know. That way, same way, this instrument of the mind and the body and intellect complex is like a car which is in running condition. We need to be alert to remain in the path. Otherwise, the boat, an example where it is being driven in different direction by the wind, this car also will be sliding and going somewhere else into a pond or a ditch or somewhere. We won't know. That is why the alertness is very important.
Okay. So basically, if I remember Krishna or Shiva or any other god, my favorite god, or Neem Karoli Baba or anybody, and in general interaction, when I tend to be Anu or tend to not know that I am self, this sounds easier to sounds like it's easy to remember Krishna than knowing that, oh, I am the self. So you are saying that will also lead to the same detachment or establishment.
That will give you much control over your mind rather than not having it. But ultimately, your happiness will come when you are abiding in the self. Because the Krishna, Shiva, Neem Karoli Baba or anybody for that matter is an external factor. You are not seeing Krishna as yourself, or Rama as yourself, or Shiva as yourself. If you are doing that, that's a different issue. The tendency for us will be always imagine such characters as powerful external, like how they say in the Father in the heaven. The heaven is right in our heart. The happiness and the sorrow is felt in our heart, in our mind. So the heaven cannot be outside above in the sky. It is well within ourselves. So with the Father is also within ourselves. The Self is also within ourselves. Krishna is also within ourselves. Rama is also within ourselves. That way, if you can look into that, the names are not important. Your abidance in that within yourself, that's self-controlled or self-withdrawn. Kurmanganiva, like the tortoise withdrawing itself. This example which was given earlier. These all will help you.
Okay, and these, remembering God is also helpful, right? That's what you said.
It will helpful in the initial stages for you to take you away from the sense objects. But ultimately, you have to place that God within yourself. That's your own nature.
Okay, great. So the second question I was asking, that if mind is established in this knowledge that I'm this beingness instead of this person, and it's totally established, like totally confirmed, so is there still vigilance required?
Yes, vigilance is required every moment. Every step, every breath, it is required.
Or it happens effortlessly after that?
No, it's that effort, that vigilance is an effort which we will be maintaining. Even when we are in abundance and the, peace and happiness, we have to be alert because we are not got rid of our sense organs and the mind. We have only reoriented them towards the self within. So the ultimate final freedom will come only when the freedom from the mind and the intellect, our mind and the sense organs take place. Shankaracharya tells this in the Brihadaranya Upanishad Bhashya. The ultimate mukti is in the Videha Mukti. Jivan Mukti is what we are discussing now. Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. So it is different from the ultimate Mukti.
So till death of body, vigilance is required.
Yes.
But this sounds so. Anu is an acquired identity in this birth, and that I'm never going to forget.
You will forget that.
No, unless I get dementia or something like that. Even if
No.
I'm.
Did you remember your Anu when you were in deep sleep?
If somebody says Anu, I'll wake up and say yes.
No. That time you have already come to the waker. That is why you are knowing Anu as you. In your deep sleep, you don't hear Anu. You don't listen. You don't have any knowledge of Anu existing.
But Binduji, this knowledge is only for the waker, no?
The waker will have that knowledge of the self alone is that what is there. That when you know that the self alone is everything, everywhere, sarvashaha, sarvataha, when you know that, you will be in a state of, that ekatvam, advitiyat avastha, sa atma sa vitneyaha, mandukya, where you say, nanda prajnan, nabhi prajnan, no veda prajnan, na prajnan, na prajnan, prajnana ghanam, achintyam avyaktam ananta rupam. All those things which we studied in the Mandukya 7th mantra. What did it say? Prapanchopashamam. When the whole world is dissolved in what? In the consciousness. Ekatma pratyasaram. Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. That is the non-dual state, which is similar to the deep sleep. In the waking. And that is the Atma. That should be known.
Thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Anu. Namaste, Venkat.
If I have time only, will progress. I can also wait till tomorrow.
Is it long one?
Yes.
Then we'll do tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming and attending the session, and those who came up, a special thank you. Always a heartfelt thanks to Bindoji for conducting these classes. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the replays are available in Clubhouse or on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. The links are shared, and Bindoji will be updating the Spotify link shortly. We will meet tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST for session 35 Bhagavad Gita. Over to you, Bindoji, to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash, Srini, Anu, and Venkat. Celsia has asked a question. Bindoji, are you saying that regardless of the emotions we are going through, we should be alert and conscious? Yes. We have to be alert and conscious all the time. Conscious of our nature as self, and alert that the mind doesn't take us away back to the world of objects as attraction, so that we develop likes and dislike. If we can keep alert and awake, nothing like that. Thank you all. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night, Bindoji. Hari Om.